Hello, welcome everyone to the Forest of Imagination's sharing for the Bath Digital Festival. I'd love to introduce the team to you. So my name is Penny Hay, if I haven't met you before. I'm a reader in creative teaching and learning at Bath Spa University, research fellow in the Centre for Cultural and Creative Industries and director of research for a charity, House of Imagination. But essentially I'm an artist. So I'm going to hand over first of all to Alison.
Hello, I'm Alison Harper. I'm a Forest of Imagination artist. I've worked with Penny and the rest of the team for several years now. So I've seen the amazing project grow and become different things. And it certainly changed me and how I work. So, yeah.
Thanks, Alison. Claire?
So I'm Claire Day. Work in various different ways in different contexts, mainly with clay, although not this year. So I've worked with Forest of Imagination for, like Alison, for many, many years, too many years to count.
Thank you. And Jess?
Like Alison and Claire, I've been with Forest of Imagination since my 8th year. And I would also say being part of Forest has enabled me to work on a bigger scale, work on a bigger canvas, and that's been a total pleasure.
Excellent, thank you. And Jo?
Hi, I'm Jo. I'm a writer and artist. I do visual art and I do creative writing, poetry, short stories, etc. The main way I engage with the public is through creative writing workshops, which have slightly been scuppered this year. But through Forest of Imagination, I have managed to move those things to a digital platform. This is my first year with Forest, and it's been a fantastic experience.
Thanks, Jo. And Andrew, welcome from Berlin.
Yeah, hello from Berlin. My name's Andrew Amundsen, and I'm an artist and filmmaker based in Berlin. And this is my first year with the Forest. And pardon me, I swallowed a frog yesterday, so I'm a bit hoarse. It's been a really wonderful experience, both to see the Forest last summer and in its physical form, but then also this year with digital, wrapping my brain around how to use this platform or the platforms available to connect both with nature and each other.
Thanks, Andrew. And Kate, we're just doing quick introductions before we go into our sharing our journey.
Kate Mason, Director of The Big Door and Trustee of House of Imagination.
Thank you, Kate, and thanks for joining us. So I'm just going to share my screen, everyone. If this works, let's hope. Okay, that's good. So our story today is about moving from the physical to the digital. And I really wanted to give our artist team, or some of our artists, the opportunity to share their experience with all of you. So I am experiencing a little bit of static at the moment, but for those of you that don't know, Forest of Imagination is co-designed with Andrew Grant, who designed Gardens by the Bay in Singapore, top left image. And this is now, as Jess said, this is our 8th year. So each year we've taken over a familiar space and redesigned it, bringing nature, creativity and imagination into the city, and often co-designing that with the community. So the 2nd year in Queen Square, the 3rd year in the Abbey. We took over Edge Arts at the University of Bath and Bushy Norwood Meadow, working alongside the architecture students. In 2018, we were in Kingsmead Square and on the river. And then last year, we were at the Holborn Museum. So here's a beautiful House of Imagination pop-up designed by Field and Clegg Bradley Studios. And each year we engage about 20 schools and the community in co-designing the event. So this year we were supposed to be at the Forum on the 10th of October, a couple of weeks ago. But because of COVID, we had to, I'm going to say it, pivot to a digital platform. So since May, we've been working together as a team to really think about what we do differently. So I'm going to hand over to the artists now to share their journey. So Jess, would you like to start?
Hello, yes, I'm Jessica Palmer and I work in a variety of media. For Forest of Imagination, I often tend to use cardboard, and this year we decided to create a piece which was all about interconnectedness and bringing the forest into the city through the small screen. So these images are parts of my forest city, which I completed last weekend in a small installation in my house, and is about to be presented to a school in its component parts so that they can build on it and develop it and mess about with it and deconstruct it and do anything they want with it. Part of my practice is drawing, and I see drawing very much as not just being with a pen but being with a knife. I worked 1 week, my theme during my residency was to work across the generations. So I was able to borrow this wonderful little 9-year-old called Adelaide, who happened to be living next door to me at the time. And she made this figure and later on some 3-dimensional pieces as well, which formed part of the overall Forest City piece. And then throughout the year, I've been working with Bath City Farm to celebrate their 25th anniversary. And that provided a really good way of linking to Jo Backhouse and her work. So these are some images that I made as part of that, handing on the baton.
Thank you, Jess. And Jo, would you like to take the baton?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Jo, and in my normal practice, I make small collage pieces made from recycled materials. I do a lot of photography. The main thing I do is I write, and when engaging with the public, it's doing creative writing workshops. So the original thing in pre-COVID world that I was planning to do was to run some poetry workshops with children at Bath City Farm whilst Jess was working there. Instead, because we had to pivot, obviously, I built a website and I shared those poetry workshops in a virtual form through making short films, time-lapse videos, photography, so plenty of pictures and workshop ideas for people to use. Holly from the farm actually has shared with me some of the responses that were given, and they were absolutely brilliant. So they obviously, that did get through to people. During Children's Art Week, I continued doing similar things. I did a time-lapse video of my own writing process and an imagined writing process of a poet, and shared that through Instagram, Twitter, etc., and on my website. And over this last autumn period, I was hoping to put it into the forum, obviously. I created a physical piece, which was this map image, which you can see on the screen now, which sort of examines, the oncoming of autumn, the idea of the forest coexisting with human activity. So the struggle between nature and the human world, the impact that nature has on us and that we have on it, and the kind of the struggle that seems to be going on there. And the map became more and more complicated in terms of including memory and the news and so on while I was making it. I also made a short film using some of the imagery from the map when it became clear that we weren't going to be able to share it, which I've shared on Twitter today again. So yeah, the great thing about pivoting to the digital has meant that I've begun to use a much wider variety of tools. I've never made film before, apart from just videoing cats and dogs and the family and so on. So that was a great experience, and the whole thing has been really very rewarding for me.
Thanks, Jo. That's excellent. And we can share some of the films. people on YouTube can't see the chat, so we can use the Q&A if people have got questions. But let's hand over now to Claire. Claire's working.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, sorry. Yes. So for me, it was interesting because my original idea, my pre-COVID idea, was to collect lots of unwanted discarded drawings from the students at the university where I work, sew them all together to a big piece of paper that everyone could then draw over. That was, I found it quite sad having to rethink that idea, let go of that idea. But once I had, just like the others were saying, it was quite a good learning experience to almost be forced to make that switch. And so I just posted some very simple provocations about connecting to trees and to forests. So how you would live in a tree, or what's the story of your tree, and then prompted people to make tree drawings, which I then stitched together into this gifted forest. So children did get trees to me, families did, but also other artists. So that was a lovely thing to connect with other artists. And that's a picture of the finished gifted forest. But what I also wanted to say was how nice it was to be able to kind of respond to the other artists' challenges. And I think it's been said before that normally in Forest of Imagination, we're all so kind of in our own space. It's very full on working on our own workshops and whatnot. So to be able to connect with the other artists was quite an interesting and different thing to do. So I enjoyed that part of it very much.
Thank you, Claire. That's really beautiful work. And obviously you passed the baton. I don't know whether I got the order right, so apologies, but you passed the baton to Matt Lees, and then Matt created an Instagram kind of forest vine online, which everybody was involved in. And then Matt passed the baton to Helen Lawrence, who took over her garden and created, Helen's also a chef, so she created these wonderful edible and fruit flower forests. And then over to Alison. So Alison, would you like to take the baton now?
Thanks, Penny. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Fine.
Okay. Yeah, so it has been great working as part of this team, supportive team. I'm not sort of used to working like that, so that's been really interesting, and how we kind of could come together, although we couldn't actually meet, to sort of support each other just online. But so my theme kind of got changed with the circumstances of everything happening, and this theme of enchantment came up, which I had looked at before in writing and researching, and it seemed to fit in very well with the interconnected theme, because that's something that I sort of think about a lot, and how we connect with the material world particularly, because that's quite strong in my work. So what the challenge was for me was to kind of be able to put across the emotions and the feelings that go with my work. And because to me a digital image can be kind of thin, and we're just surrounded by so many images now, was kind of saturated in a digital world. So I became interested in finding images just really close to me, just sometimes in my house, sometimes in my garden, that I could photograph and then put onto the Forest of Imagination website. So that's a moth that we found on the windowsill, which sadly had passed away, but to me that is so beautiful. And I like the way you put it with the other piece, Penny, because I wouldn't have done that. I don't think. That's really interesting. The piece on the right is made from the insides of paper coffee cups. So it's made of this kind of plastic that won't go away, that can't be recycled or reused, or so with that piece and all my work, I'm trying to create an aesthetic to draw people in and really make them think about the material world and how we treat it, how we mistreat it. So to create a sort of bit of magic in a digital form, I think I found quite challenging. But it was great to work with the musician. I worked with someone I know called Brian Madigan, and he took the words from the previous quote and also the words of the famous John Clare poem, All Nature Has a Feeling, and he made that into a really nice song. So at the end, Hannah put lots of my images with the song, and that was really interesting, because I would never have done that. I would never have had the wherewithal or the technical skill to do that. So yeah, I'm still really exploring. I don't use the internet as I should, I know that, and I'm still exploring ways to kind of make that better and to have more confidence in doing that, because I've always found it quite kind of revealing in a way. So yeah,
Beautiful.
still learning.
I love the fact that you talk very strongly about the ephemeral, and I think that's why I put these two images together, Alison, because they kind of summed up that kind of nuance. Really beautiful. Thank you very much, Alison. Excellent. And obviously Perry isn't able to join us today, but Perry also, you may know his work because he's offered an image for Forest of Imagination every single year, I think. In fact, we met on Twitter, and I didn't meet him for a couple of years in person, and now he's a loyal forest artist. So I'm just looking at the team, and Becky, if you can hear me, we seem to have lost Andrew from Berlin, but I'm going to move on and just explain that we then passed the baton.
Hello? Am I not here?
It is there. Good. I
think I'm here.
I'm so glad. I thought you dropped off the call. Maybe it was just my screen. I wasn't seeing you. So yeah, so we passed the baton to Denise and Kennedy. So Denise and Kennedy have got a project in Zimbabwe called Trees of Hope, which we've partnered with the Forest of Imagination. So we've got 3 schools working across Bath Radstock area and working in Zimbabwe with 3 schools as well. A current bid to the British Council. So do have a look at the website for that beautiful film. And I'm going to hand over now to Andrew. So we're delighted that you can join us from Berlin. I'm glad you didn't disappear.
Yeah, no, I think, I believe that I'm here. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, you are.
Can you see me? I don't know. I can't see anything else. But yeah, well, I'm an artist and filmmaker based in Berlin. And I think most of my professional career has been in documentaries. And I would say that work has always been about connecting with the subjects, connecting them to then an audience through the media, through the platform of film, to share their stories. And in the last couple of years, I've transitioned into more art and art installations, and with the idea of using play as a way to connect. And through the installations that we've been doing in Berlin, through with another artist, Benjamin Martin, and myself as Playful Nature, we've worked on these very, very basic invitations for people to play. So the picture you're seeing right now is where we set up just a number of hooks throughout the gallery space. And then I think we had 10 balls of yarn that were hanging from the chandelier hook. And then without any rules of engagement, we just let people go in and find their way. And what we notice is that when you have this simple activity, something that's playful, this a bit of inspiration that works as an invitation, then people come in and they connect in a way that is, I think, quite magic. And so that's in the physical space. And when I was thinking about how to use the space that we were given for the virtual forest, for Forest of Imagination this year, I also wanted to figure out a way to connect. And so what I did was using little films with myself in front of the camera instead of behind the camera. I was offering this idea of prompts, which I'd seen that the other artists in the virtual forest were using, just like very nice suggestions, like come along, let's see what comes of this. And so this was an experiment in engagement. And I wanted to use the platform of Instagram because I wanted to see if I could reach that elusive group between the ages of 11 and 18. And these are the kids that in the Forest of Imagination last summer, I saw families, kids connecting, playing, creativity. It was just flowing. And I think the people who need it are, also these older kids, and they're the ones who are at the highest risk of digital isolation. And so I thought, could I make something that would, using the platform that they're on, saying, you don't have to put your phone down for the first time. You can actually pick it up and do something with it. And so the first video I will share is one called Nature Tagging, and I'll let the video speak for itself.
So today's challenge is a bit of nature tagging. So I don't know, get out into nature, find yourself some trees, and keep a lookout for some things that you might be able to use. I'll take a leaf, that should do. Huh? Have a couple pieces like that. Dirty fingers, that's a good thing. Here we got our nose. Here we got an ant. Get some hair up there. No, just leave that there for somebody to see when they're walking by, and who knows, maybe you'll make somebody smile today. All right, and getting out in nature, that's the thing. So have a great day. See you tomorrow.
Andrew, would you like the second film?
Yeah, sure. It looks like it's stuttering a little bit, so we can try the second film. So the first one was about, if you're on Instagram and you get this invitation to go outside and do a little bit of nature tagging, it's a prompt to do something creative and to share something creative, and with the effect of getting you outside and connecting with nature. And that was just so that's the point of that. And then one of the last challenges that I put forth was to connect with somebody who's over 80. And for the video that we'll show now, it's my neighbor, Frau Wegner. And I was just thinking, in this time where we're all just, we don't have the ability to connect like we used to, and also with this time of uncertainty that I think everyone is feeling. And I think about the younger generation, how they might feel. And I thought, well, who else better to talk about how you get through these uncertain times, and somebody who's been through a lot of uncertain times. And so that was the idea of connecting with people in this 80+ challenge.
Versuche ich, die Natur zu schützen. Also ich möchte gerne einmal, dass Tiere gut leben und dass die Menschen auch gesund sind. Ich mache ja ganz viel Marmelade oder Apfelgelee. Sie kennen das ja auch, nicht? Ja, den verschenke ich ja. Ich mache das, also ich nehme alles, was ich kriege, an ungespritztem, gutem Obst. Ja, das wird dann auch ausgeschnitten und da mache ich Apfelgelee und mache damit ganz vielen Menschen Freude.
Vielen Dank.
Ja,
und dann ich sehe zu Hause.
Tschüss.
Tschüss. And don't forget to use all of the appropriate social distancing measures to keep our elders safe. It can be easiest just to make a phone call to your grandparents. That's always appreciated.
Brilliant. So, any last words, Andrew, before I carry on?
No, I think that's it. It's just the idea was to see how we connect online and also in the real world. So, to do a little bit of a play with the both of those. Thank you.
Thank you. And I love that intergenerational link that, even more now. I love also the concept of the accidental climate activist. And I think we'll become those.
Versuche ich.
So Andrew passed the baton to Alf Coles, who Andrew and Alf actually met at the Forest last year. And Alf's been working hard behind the scenes with Phils and Clegg Bradley Studios with Marcus Rothney and his team to design a mirror maze, which was going to be going into the forum, but it will be at Forest of Imagination 2021. But instead, Alf designed these beautiful, with Marcus, these beautiful kind of interventions online again through video and through photography. We also had Oliver Wallace, who we met through the House of Fairy Tales, but now Oliver runs Patchlark. So he ran a storytelling adventure on 10-10-20 as the kind of launch of this day for the collaboration between Forest of Imagination, TEDx Bath and The Big Draw. So some beautiful films. These are all documented fully on our website, The Forest of Imagination, not least thanks to Hannah Newton and Wayne Lindsay, who've been looking after that, and the wonderful Big Draw team. But I'll pass you over to Kate in a minute. We also had a Big Draw event. In fact, Kate, this is the time to bring you in with Tim Viner. Would you like to say something about that, Kate? So Tim Viner is Professor in Illustration at Bath Spa University. And on 10-10-20, we had a kind of takeover day. Over to you, Kate.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Good. Lovely to be here. Yes, so obviously the bigger picture is the Big Draws Festival this year is Big Green Draw, climate of change, and then thinking about all the links through with the digital forest and the House of Imagination, the Forest of Imagination. So we all clubbed together and we've been doing quite a lot of collaboration over the last 6 months, which seems to have gone quite quickly. But in terms of, so it's been a pleasure to work with all the artists on the screen actually. But to Tim, so if we're specifically talking about Tim, so yes, I think it was, gosh, was it the 10th? It was, wasn't it, Penny? So yes, it was to align with 10-20, the TEDx Countdown. And we did one of our Instagram lives. So the Big Draw does Instagram live pretty much every week anyway. So we were able to plug it into that Drawn in Conversation program. So that's basically where I will interview, I think maybe not really interview, more chat with artists, creative people, change makers, really, people that we think are interesting and have something to share with our audiences. And we did it slightly different this time with Tim because we actually had Tim on the move. So instead of just us both be sat down like we all are now, Tim was up on a hill by the farm in Bath, and thankfully it didn't rain. And he took a walk down the hill and made his way to the local football grounds. And as he was going, he was digitally sketching using Procreate and an Apple Pencil. And we had a number of agreed stops along the way, and I was sort of chatting to him as we went along. And the themes that we were talking about were very much, I think they were really themes, looking at football and community programs really as a microcosm of what's happening within the bigger picture. So the impact on local community that COVID is having on these grassroots community organisations and activities. So, and actually it went very well. Delighted to say that we've had lots of hits on the Instagram feed, and there'll also be a follow-up indeed tomorrow. Delighted that Bath Digital Festival will be doing a sort of recap on that as part of their festival tomorrow. So
thank you, Kate.
That we did.
Excellent. On. So we were also lucky as part of 10-10-20, we kind of gathered together a team of artists locally and internationally, and through Twitter we met Ben C, who introduced us to Esmeralda Condorui, who runs the Little Sun Choir, and she launched the premiere of the Grandmothers Project on 10-10-20, which was absolutely beautiful. So again, have a look at our website for this documentation. My screen seemed to have frozen. We've also been working alongside Mitch Turnbull, who's designed a beautiful VR experience around Earth songs. So again, her film's available. And Veronica, our wonderful creative producer, has put together a series of artist films that will also be available on our website for viewing soon. So I can send the link to those. And as Kate says, on 10-10-20, it was a beautiful collaboration. Well, with the Big Draw since before May, I think we launched the Virtual Forest in May in Creativity and Wellbeing Week. And we've had amazing support from Kate's team and also, as I said, from Hannah and Wayne from our team to support the not only the social media, but also the web presence. So on 10-10-20, we also launched a creative learning invitation for all schools and families in the area, which is a beautiful document inviting learning. It's not prescriptive in any way. It's just a kind of a set of creative possibilities. And the wonderful, wonderful Toby Thompson, who's we worked with since he was 3, I think, he also made some films for 10-10-20. So the TEDx team were an incredible team to work with. So they curated an hour on 10-10-20 that was specifically, as all of our themes, in response to climate change and linking to TED Countdown. So very much around a kind of international call to take ideas into action and make a difference together. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to invite, because some of you are watching on a website and others are watching on the live stream from the Bath Digital Festival side. And if you've got any questions, if you'd like to put them into the chat, no, the other way around. If you'd like to put them into the Q&A, because everybody can see the Q&A, and Becky is going to field those questions. But I'd like to start with a question back to the team, and just to think in terms of, because of the pandemic and because of having to pivot to a digital platform, it has been literally kind of creativity in a crisis. And I think that for me as an artist, the crisis has opened up these spaces of possibility to do things differently. It hasn't always been easy. It's been a challenge. I have loved our Monday meetings. We've met, it's been an optional meeting every Monday at 4:30 that many artists have been to every time. Well done, Jess. But I think, the idea that we had to kind of think on our feet and think divergently. And I have to also give a shout out to the Arts Council, because without their emergency funding, we would have crashed as a charity. And so we made sure that most of that money was to support artists in this difficult time. And that was one of our priorities. And that was the very beginning of, we were called 5x5 20 years ago. Now we're called the House of Imagination. So I'm just going to open it up in terms of how have we done things differently, and what would you like to comment on? Who would like to go first? Just wave at me, or just butt in, that's fine. Go on, Jess.
So I think at the beginning, back in May, in that very first meeting when we were talking together, what I felt at the time was a sense of the impending isolation, as has been mentioned quite a few times, and trying to think of ways of combating that isolation. That normally, as an artist, you often crave isolation because it's the only way you can focus in on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to make. But I had this sense of dread of the void, really. And what the grouping together with other artists gave us was a sense of being able to plot a path through the period of lockdown, certainly, and beyond. Gave us a series of little stepping stones to be able to hop from one to another. That was my sense about it. And just as many of the other artists have said, I've learned a huge amount from working with other artists. In a previous life, I am very comfortable and used to working in teams. But since I became an artist, which was in 2006, officially kind of transitioned from one career to another, I have been very siloed and very alone. So it's been fantastic to have that opportunity to get inspired, and not just to get inspired, but to be challenged as well. And I think the big challenge for the future is harnessing the technology even more. I think we gave it a pretty good shot, pretty good go, but I think we could probably do much more.
Thank you, Jess. Anybody want to come in there and add to that? Claire?
Yes. So what I think how I think it was useful for me, very much what Jess was saying was interesting, but for me, I because it doesn't come naturally, the whole digital thing. Hang on.
Oh, don't worry, Claire. That's fine.
We have a funny light in here which goes off automatically, so I have to spin around and turn it on. So for me, it was about the discipline of that very initial week where we were posting something every day. I kind of managed to keep that up in my own practice, and I've been doing something called the Artist Support Pledge on Instagram, which is a wonderful thing of artists, kind of a circular thing of artists supporting other artists. So it really helped me to get into that discipline of trying to post something and connect every day, which I don't think I'd have done without Forest. So it is really all interconnected, isn't it? That our own practice with our socially engaged practice. I thought that was quite an interesting thing.
Absolutely. And Alison, can I invite you to say a little bit more about, as you mentioned about, ideas, growing ideas with and for each other, so that we were kind of responding to each other. Hannah responded to you, just the way that you're putting ideas together through a digital space, which isn't your first comfort zone. Do you want to just say something about that?
Yes, well, it was a huge challenge, really, and also on a personal level, I found the whole circumstances really unnerving and made me question what on earth am I doing with my practice? Why am I doing it? How does it fit in the world now? Kind of thing. So there was a lot of uncertainty going through my mind and my attitude towards my practice. And I did find it very difficult to be creative at all. And people would say to me, oh, I'm knitting this, or I'm making this, or I've made 5 quilts or something. And I'd be going, oh, really? So, yeah, being able to kind of, slot in with Forest and see what everyone was doing. And, that as artists, we have a role to kind of carry on, and it's our kind of not our duty exactly, but it's what we can provide then in that cultural, because I could see a void as well, perhaps a different kind of void than Jess, but I was really not for a 6. So to be able to engage with the others and to have that support and come on, we can do this, it's going to be different, but we can do it, and we can put our ideas out there, and we can make a difference. And because we all know why this has happened. And and I just feel so much better now. And I don't think I'd be in this place without having done this work with you. So thank you.
Thank you. And just before we'll answer Rachel, what a lovely name, Rachel's question, but maybe because I know Kate and Joe, we've had conversations about well-being and the I know that Hannah's pulled together with Devon a blog around creativity and well-being. Do either of you or both of you want to say something about that? We'll come back then to Rachel, and then Andrew, I've got a question for you. So yes, you go first, Joe. Oh, did you? Yeah. Were you stroking your cat, or did you have your hand?
No.
I love your cat.
Trying to control my cat. She's trying to take over. No, I just wanted to add something to what Jess had said, and also what Alison just said, actually, because I'm quite a socially anxious person, and I actually find many things about this digital world easier than I haven't been by any means to all of the meetings over the summer because family things took over, but I've been to far more of the meetings than I think I would have done if we'd had a meeting every Monday in person, because actually getting myself in a mindset to go out and be with other people is sometimes quite difficult. So from that point of view, I think that's been very good. I know also that some other organisations are thinking of maintaining this idea of a digital a sort of digital output, like the Folk House in Bristol, where I go for my wood carving classes. They are looking at continuing doing digital classes alongside their real world classes. So I think whatever happens with COVID, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon, I think to continue, as Jess said, to build on what we've managed to do this year, and do more of it, and make ourselves more comfortable with it if we can.
Yeah,
it would be a good idea.
Thank you, Jo. And I always really respect your honesty. Kate, do you want to come in on that? And then I'm going to ask Andrew a question about interconnectedness, which links to Rachelle's question.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking with a big draw hat on. So I would say increasingly more over the last few years, health and well-being as a theme is cropping up a lot more across the board with our projects, our programs, and the Big Draw Festival event organisers. It's becoming a sort of a central core theme across all themes, if that makes sense. So whilst we might be having the environmental and sustainability theme this year and next year, underneath that there is the sort of ongoing thread of interconnectedness again, health and well-being, and how people are connecting with nature and their surroundings, and slowing down, breathing, looking, seeing at what's around them, just really taking that time out to better connect with everything that's happening around them. So that is fundamental to what we're doing this year at the Big Draw. I think what's been interesting particularly about this project for me, and there's lots of things, I think most of the artists have heard lots of my feedback before, but I think to Penny's point specifically, yes, we are sent probably every week a story about, oh, this has helped my health and well-being, blah, 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 fantastic. But you don't necessarily get into the skin of it and see the individual artists, maybe their journeys with that from a week to week. This has felt, ironically, it's felt a lot more personal, even though we're distant and we're digital. So whilst at the Big Draw team, we're constantly sharing fantastic stories around, a doodler day helps your health, and all that sort of stuff. Fantastic. It's great, but it's not an immediate, whereas something like this, you're hearing people coming in, and I think most of the artists have come every week, haven't they, Penny? And they're checking in. Yes, everyone's having very, sensible conversations around logistics and what we're going to do, but in between that there's the human stuff about asking how people are and what they've been doing that week, and connecting, and actually that it is making them feel better and feeling part of something. And I think certainly all the artists on the screen have at some point over the last few weeks suggested that actually they felt more connected being one artist as part of a much bigger project than they might have done ordinarily with another pre-COVID project. Because with something like this, the partnership and the workings of it are laid bare. It's all these conversations, it's these workings, and we are all part of that. So you are intrinsically part of it and part of those conversations, and you're sort of uncloaked from everybody. We all see each other, and it's a funny thing that despite that distance of the screen, it seems to break down those barriers more. I think I found that really quite interesting.
Thank you, Kate. And it brings me to my next question back to Andrew, but just to bring in Rachelle's question, because actually what isn't seen usually in the forest, this manifestation of beautiful creativity every year of a 5-day physical event with 55 organisations, over 100 artists, 20 schools, everything's co-designed, co-produced, co-created, etc. I think it also, Rachelle, offers us an opportunity to look at new forms of art, and especially in the kind of digital world, you suggesting coding art. So for instance, with my other research fellows hat on, I'm part of the studio, which is in the Centre for Cultural and Creative Industries. It's in the centre of Bath, and within that residency-based programme, we have lots of people that are immersed in kind of new technologies and coding. Dave Webb, as an example, is one of them. So I think it would be really good to kind of connect that opportunity. But it brings me to involving people like Andrew. So Andrew and I met in Denmark at a festival of imagination, and then clearly I collect people in the best way possible. So Andrew then came over to Forest last year, and I think you witnessed that notion of kind of creative collaboration. And so it was great to be able to invite you to be involved this year. Andrew, do you just want to talk about the fact, you're in Berlin, you work with Olafur Eliasson, you also have your own film practice, you used to work with vendors. Can you say a little bit more about the kind of international connectedness and exploring new ways of, I'm just thinking about Olafur's lovely new Earth
Speaker. Yeah, it's a great tool. It's an app that the studio created called Earth Speaker, which basically maps a child's face through an app and lets them put that the message that they make, their video message, on superimpose it onto a tree trunk or a rock or a piece of rubbish floating in the water. And then it gives them a voice. So it's a great project that comes from the studio, and I think it also addresses this idea of like, what are new ways that are exciting to connect with each other? They're always popping up, new platforms, new apps, new ideas, and yeah, I think what's interesting about this time, and because of the pandemic, there's the first thing you start to think is like, okay, well, there are new opportunities, that are created through this. But I think the thing that we can all be asking ourselves as artists and people who care is to, like, what are the needs? So when you're talking about, Kate, for Big Draw next year about health and well-being and what it means. And I mean, that's what we're all facing, as this continues with the pandemic, is our mental health and how we're gonna hold together, individually and together. Yeah. And I think it also makes me think of the digital space is so amorphous. It's you throw something out there and you don't know what it does. There's this idea that it does something, maybe the butterfly flaps its wing and something, comes of that. But it also can be a very lonely place. So I think that's what we'll all have to kind of sort out and figure out in this next bit of time, is because it gives you, a lot of these tools are now available to us. It gives us the quick fix of like, oh, I'm connected. I'm connecting. I have purpose today, but it is the deeper connections that we're going to have to make and maintain. I think we have to think about those as well. And that was what was nice about, I came in, I think, a little bit later in this process with the virtual forest and all the artists here on the screen. But I could go and see what was already created. I could say, okay, here's Joe has this creative writing thing here, and I understand this paper thing's being built, and these, and then you think about what you have to offer. And I think that was a nice position for me to come into this, and it's like, all right, I see there is a community, there is something, and I think also when Jessica said there's a lot to figure out, in this space still. Yeah. Kate, so, you want to say something?
Go on, Kate.
So I just was going to pick up a little bit on Rachel's question. I think yes. I think absolutely yes. And I'm thinking about departments like the Digital Arts Computing degree at Goldsmiths, and the one similar one at Ravensbourne, I believe they have one as well. There's a few different ones, and they're doing some really incredible work. I'm thinking of the Lumen Prize, who is doing some fantastic work. And I'm thinking about, so even some of the artists that we've programmed into previous years, and we haven't this year, sadly, but previously we had a partnership going with Apple, with Today Apple. And so myself and then we're programming in people each October, and so we were actually looking at quite a bit of augmented reality stuff as well, so thinking around interactive activities about photogrammetry, I think it's called. So you're taking lots of photos of a space and then they get scanned in and then they get made into like a 3D world. And I mean, I can send some links, not now, I'd need to pull them out, but I can send them, maybe I'll send them to Becky or Penny or somebody if people are interested in them. But I mean, an example of one of our ambassadors actually that's again starts to think about layering those different opportunities for the entry points into a project was with one of our ambassadors, Tanya Raba-Weber, and she did something a few years ago, Portraits Untold, and it had so many different layers to it. So she went into like National Portrait Gallery and various spaces, gallery spaces. There would be a live audience. She would be simultaneously sketching a live sitter, traditionally pen and paper, simultaneously on a super big snazzy pad of some sort, probably iPad, I expect. She would be digitally sketching them. The whole thing, people were drawing live, so the live audience. They were also streaming the whole thing live, and they were scanning, and people were sending in their drawings of the sitter into, and it was somehow, I don't know how the technology, being superimposed back onto the digital image. And then the drawings were also, so we ended up with this incredible composite image that all came together of the person, of the individual. So the composite was made up of Tanya's work, it was made up of the live audience, it was made up of people sending in their digital drawings and sketches. It was these multi-layered, of course, people were tweeting about it, they were sharing about it. There was all these different layers of analog drawing, digital drawing, external, and it really sort of makes you think about what the possibilities are. But I mean, again, if you look at some of the winners that are coming through, organisations like the Lumen Prize that are really blurring those lines. And I think computer art, I think Rachel was saying something about coding and computer art. Some incredible work coming around that's really quite mind-blowing. There's one artist, I forget the name, but is it the computer making the art, or is it, where does the human artist end and where does the computer begin? Because in this piece of code, when the computers go on lockdown, just screen lock, they start sending messages out on this app, and it draws shapes and patterns, and then that gets sent to somebody else, and it makes like an art gallery. It's all done through the coding. It's quite beautiful. But is that computer art? Is that digital art? Where does one bit end and the next bit start? And I think those are some of the conversations we do absolutely need to be having more of.
Definitely good examples, Kate. And I just put in the Q&A feed that Mitch Turnbull's work is really worth looking at. And she also worked with our students in the film school with Ruth Farrer around a 360 film as well. I've just come off another call with the expanded performance cohort with the Bristol and Bath Creative R&D, and working alongside the BBC in Forrester and James Cook with lots of fellows and fellow artists. We've got a Rabbit Holes team, and we're co-designing, hopefully with young people soon as well, an adaptive podcast around adaptive narrative using sounds and immersive experiences around kind of liveness and togetherness. So watch this space, because that's a great project. And just quickly, because I am going to ask people for kind of final comments in a minute before we do thank yous, but I know that Andrew Grant, who's co-founder of Forest and is founder of Grant Associates, and obviously key partner with House of Imagination and Bath Spa University, Field and Clegg Bradley Studios in Forest for Imagination, working together as a big team for many years. But it's very important that everybody is invited into the Forest, and we not only support local artists but also working internationally. So hopefully next year we will be able to reapply to the Arts Council for some funding to bring in some work alongside Thomas Saraceno, Morag Myerscough, Tanya Kovacs, obviously Alice Mirames, but I think all of the installations that we had proposed this year for Travelling Forest and next year, whether we're back at the Holborn or not, is yet to be decided or confirmed because of COVID. But the idea that we do celebrate this kind of creative community, this creative ecology, and I think Andrew's phrase is something around, Forest is a manifestation of that kind of art and participation in the city. And for me, it's very important that everybody has that invitation to be involved in a conversation around creativity and imagination and the importance of nature in our lives. So that really drives me as an artist, definitely. But yes, so team, thank you very much. I'm just going to ask for one reflection from each of you, just a sentence or a phrase or a reflection to think going forward. And while you think of that, I'm going to just thank Clay Hill Arts in Bridgewater, the lovely Debbie Burke, and obviously Becky from the Bath Digital Festival, because you've also been constant supporters through the last however many months it's been, 6-8 months. So thank you so much, and clearly Bath Spa University for their constant support in all aspects of our work. So final reflections, and you don't feel obliged, but I'm going to put Kate on the spot first. What would your kind of nugget of gold be, Kate?
Nugget of gold. As I've said to you before on some of the previous calls onto the artists, we've talked about all the interconnected and the development, but actually I have been absolutely delighted to see the ambition that's come through from all of the artists that have taken part on this. And at the Big Draw, we have a lot of partnerships, obviously, and they're all fantastic, obviously. Some are a little bit more ambitious than others, as you know, depending on resources and everything else. It's just the way it goes. But I think what has been lovely to see, particularly on this project, is just the bar that's been set in terms of the ambition of all the artists involved and what they were able to do. I think it's been incredible.
Thank
quality.
you. Yes. Last word, Alison. While Alison finds her, so Rachel, yes, absolutely. We encourage all artists of diverse, different backgrounds, all cultures, every age. Everybody's invited. It just happens that today we don't have Black artists on the screen, but absolutely everybody's welcome. Everybody's valued. Alison.
Just that for me, I think it's been extraordinary. One of the extraordinary things is that so many different art forms can come together and be part of this amazing sort of whole piece. So whether that's the digital thing that kind of is the glue, or the medium, all these different mediums seem to work in this format, I think that's what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah. Jess and then Joe.
I would say, in response to what Kate was saying about digital possibilities, that's extremely exciting, and we need to know more about those kind of things and bring them into Forest in the future. But I'd also just like to make a plea for the physical space as well, and to think as creatively as we possibly can going forward about how we populate the physical space in the way that Forest always has done in Bath, so that it might not be that all singing, all dancing in one spot, here we are today kind of activity, but maybe small. I've got an open studio soon, for instance, small things that can pop up here and there in a park, or in an open space, or possibly even in a closed space that's well managed in our COVID future, if you like.
Thank you, Jess. Yes, and Claire and then Andrew. Briefly.
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing has been to see it as to still think of the real space, but see the digital as a window on the real space. And once I was able to see it like that, I think it feels much more positive and more connecting.
Thanks, Claire. And Andrew?
I think that this is the Virtual Forest was a place to play, and I think that's what I'll take from this. And going forward is just always be looking for a way to play, either in the digital or in the physical world.
Thank you, brilliant. And I'm just going to end by sharing my screen, and just to say a big thank you to the Bath Digital Festival and all of the sponsors for the Digital Festival. Because obviously, in this tricky time, you can see many of the partners there also support Forest of Imagination. And I think it's absolutely vital that we work together to design a creative future for our communities. So thank you, team. Thank you, Bath Digital Festival. Thank you, Kate and the Big Draw team, and all of our artists. So have a lovely day.